Grandpa Thomas sat on the edge of his small rented bed, staring at the hospital discharge papers in his hands. His chest still ached from the heart attack, but the pain in his heart was nothing compared to the shock waiting for him. When the taxi pulled up to his old street, Thomas's pulse quickened. He had lived in that house for 47 years, the house where he had raised his son David, planted apple trees with his late wife Martha, and built every wooden shelf with his own hands. But instead of the warm red brick home he knew, he saw moving trucks in the driveway and strangers carrying furniture inside. Thomas felt his knees weaken. A woman in her 30s, wearing a realtor's badge, noticed him standing frozen on the sidewalk. "Sir, can I help you?" she asked gently. This is my house," Thomas said, his voice trembling. She frowned, checking her clipboard. "I'm sorry, sir. The property was sold last month by a Mr. David Green." Thomas's stomach dropped. David, his only son. The boy he'd worked 2 jobs to put through college. The man he had trusted with his bank accounts when his health started failing. Without saying a word, Thomas turned and walked away. He didn't knock on the door. He didn't shout. He just kept walking, every step heavier than the last. The betrayal cut deeper than anything in his 76 years. Martha had always warned him. "Tom, David loves money more than family. Don't give him too much power." But Thomas had ignored her. Now he had nothing. The sale of the house had emptied his savings, and the hospital bills had swallowed what was left. He rented a small, cold room above a mechanic's garage and lived off Social Security checks. But Thomas wasn't a man who stayed broken for long. One rainy afternoon, as he sat at the diner sipping black coffee, he overheard 2 construction workers talking. "That new property on Willow Street? Bought by that developer, Robert Chase. Planning to flip it and sell high," one of them said. Thomas froze. Willow Street. That was his house. An idea began to form. Dangerous, maybe even foolish, but it lit a spark in him. Robert Chase wasn't just any developer. Thomas knew his reputation: greedy, careless, and hated by many in the small town. Thomas had once repaired Chase's fence for free back in the 90s, and the man never even said thank you. If anyone could be beaten at his own game, it was Robert Chase. Thomas went to the public records office. With some patient digging and a few conversations with old friends in real estate, he learned something important. Chase had bought the house on a short-term bank loan. If the renovations didn't finish on time or he missed payments, the bank would repossess it. And Thomas knew how to make that happen. Legally. He visited the town's Historical Preservation Committee. The house, he explained, was nearly 100 years old. "Did you know the woodwork inside was original to the 1920s? He asked the chairman. "And the stained glass in the front door? That's antique craftsmanship you can't find anymore." By the time Thomas left the office, his house was under historical protection status. That meant no major renovations could be done without expensive permits and specific materials. Materials Chase didn't have the budget or patience for. Within weeks, construction slowed. Then it stopped entirely. Thomas heard from the diner gossip that Chase was bleeding money. 3 months later, the house went into foreclosure. The bank prepared to auction it off to recover the unpaid loan. Thomas had been saving every penny, but he was still far short of the price. That's when he got a surprise visit from someone he never expected. His granddaughter, Emily. Emily was David's daughter, but she had stopped speaking to her father years ago after he cheated her out of college funds. She had followed the whole ordeal through small-town rumors. "Grandpa," she said, sitting across from him at the diner, "I know what Dad did to you. I have savings. I want to help you buy it back." Tears welled in Thomas's eyes. "Emily, I can't let you spend your future on my past." But Emily just smiled. "You taught me that a house isn't just walls and floors. It's where love lives. And I'm not going to let a stranger have ours." On auction day, Thomas and Emily sat in the back of the courthouse room. Robert Chase was there too, looking bitter and exhausted. David didn't show his face. When the auctioneer called for bids, Thomas raised his hand. Chase tried to outbid him, but his finances were a wreck. With Emily's contribution, Thomas placed the winning bid. The gavel fell. The house was his again. Thomas didn't stop there. The next week, he invited the local paper to cover his homecoming. The story: an elderly man betrayed by his own son, regaining his home with the help of his granddaughter, spread like wildfire. It went viral online, drawing thousands of supportive comments from across the country. David saw the headlines. That same night he called. "Dad, I made a mistake. I was desperate. Please, can we talk?" Thomas listened quietly, then said, "David, desperation doesn't excuse betrayal. I don't hate you, but trust once broken is not something you can buy back. Goodbye." He hung up. Months later, Thomas sat on the porch swing, Emily beside him. The apple trees in the yard swayed gently in the wind. "Grandpa," Emily said softly, "do you ever wish you'd forgiven him?" Thomas smiled sadly. "Forgiveness is a gift, Emily. Sometimes you give it to free yourself. But other times, the greatest lesson you can give is showing someone the cost of losing it." They watched the sunset together, the house behind them standing strong, not just as a home, but as proof that sometimes justice is best served quietly, and with a little help from the next generation.